Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? Welcome back, all of you ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, grannies and gators, wherever you are. Thank you for taking the time to tune in. We're going to have a ton of fun here tonight. It's going to be a conversation a little bit further from the norm than what you guys usually get here, but we're going to solve Canada's problem today. By my estimation of what's going on in the mercenary media, aka legacy media, aka supposedly mainstream news, there's this huge problem going on that they are all talking about Diagalon, and our parliament is frozen over Diagalon, and they tell us nobody knows in Canada what even Diagalon is, but it's shutting down our country. So tonight we've got someone special. We've got Derek Rants in the house to lead us through the comedic history of Diagalon and how surreal and absurd all of this is, Derek.
Well,
Thanks
before I
for
get into that, would you mind if I stream this to my channel as well? It's got the option up in StreamYard. I figured why not to
Absolutely, for sure, man. For sure. The more the merrier.
Perfect.
I mean, if we're all going to end up in the gulag together, maybe we might as well know each other.
Yeah, well, we got plenty of time for that when we're in there for years.
Right? Yeah, I think pretty much by this point we're all looking at life. So all of you other fellow hostages out there, give this a like and a subscribe. Make sure that you're plugged into us. I know none of the people that usually are here are probably even get notifications for this being on YouTube and Facebook. But hey, what the hell? We'll get it out there anyway, and we'll have some fun. So share this out to your adult friends that really need to know or want to know what Diagalon it really is, and we'll talk about how we can solve this information gap across the country. And at the end of the day, it's probably going to sell you a couple of books. Hey,
Oh,
so
well, that's all right.
let's start off with this because this is kind of, we'll start off with where we're at now, and then we'll circle back. We'll pull a Jen Psaki and circle back to where this all begins. But this is your latest and to me most inspiring poke the bear of absurdity and stupidity in our governmental body so far. So you got this book out, Derek. Where can people find it other than maybe on Amazon? But
No, I was kicked off Amazon.
okay, well, that's an interesting part of the story. I would have been surprised if you hadn't been, but tell us about meme Khampf,
Yes.
the obvious inflection.
Yeah, I got a lot of flack for that title. I mean, people didn't like it, but it's provocative. And when you're on Amazon, when I was on Amazon, it reaches a wider audience. People want to buy it just because of the name. And it does actually kind of describe what it's about. Diagalon started out as a meme. It was a joke. And the book kind of explains the process of what we went through. Yeah, it was kind of the plan all along to get kicked off of Amazon anyway. We knew it wasn't going to stay on there. So we took the precautions ahead of time. And what I did is I purchased my own ISBN number from the government instead of using Amazon's, because Amazon makes it really easy to publish books, but they also offer a their own ISBN number. But then if they take it down, they own the rights to it. So I didn't want that. I wanted to be able to sell it outside of that. So people can go to memekhampf.ca, or we have our grift shop at thegrift.shop where you can purchase it there as well. And because of Justin Trudeau, I'm now selling them internationally.
Another case of thank you, Justin, because if we wouldn't know how messed up things really were if Justin wasn't such a flamboyant, narcissistic, raging, egomaniacal lunatic. Wacko.
Yeah, wacko is an understatement, isn't it? It's unbelievably embarrassing the way they talk to each other in the House of Parliament. And anybody that's watched that for more than 5 minutes sees that they're not getting anything done. It's a show. That's all it is. And they've mastered the art of not answering questions and think they're doing a good thing.
I've been calling it a charade for years. They're all playing parts. It's a shell game on who their sponsors or promoters are of the week. You just go and look at whatever NGO or nonprofit or charity that they're affiliated with or support, and you'll find your way back to the globalist meat puppet string pullers that
They should have to do that, the same way NASCAR does. Like we're wearing all their sponsors on their suits and everything when they go in there.
That was Robin Williams that said that initially as a joke. I think it was, politicians should all be required to wear their sponsors logos like NASCAR, and is 100% correct. Because that's who they absolutely answer to. Because as sure as Skippy don't answer to anything the people have any concern in, unless you're a new Canadian. Well, then you have all of the support and rights and privileges. But that's a whole other story. But so the book is kind of you telling the story of how the meme became the organization that lives in Trudeau's brain and all of the political party collectively now for a couple of years. But there's a darker side that's tied to all of this. We're getting right to some real serious meat and potatoes here real quick on some of this. But so that's kind of what the book is about, is telling people the story of from meme to crisis.
It does. I mean, it starts off with a bit of my life story and how I ended up talking about politics and how I ended up going to the convoy, how they used us essentially to justify calling the Emergencies Act, how it ties into Coots. And I also, a lot of the research that I've done in the past has to do with the RCMP, the FLQ, the Heritage Front.
Oh, we're gonna get right into that stuff. Let's slow this down a little bit. But this is what some of the stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah, well, I was gonna lead up to that, but the RCMP is what I focus on in the book, and there's a reoccurring pattern in Canada from the FLQ, the Heritage Front, the post 9/11, where everybody got this big be scared of the Muslims sort of thing, and all the way up to white nationalism now. Most people don't know this, but a lot of the so-called terrorist attacks that we had in Canada were orchestrated by the RCMP.
100%.
And
in fact, a good portion of them around of the world for all of our living time has been orchestrated by enforcement or intelligence agencies of some persuasion or hyphenated something or another.
It's quite disturbing what they've done. I mean, they had to put it into the minds of Canadians that Muslims bad, Muslims scare, just to be able to bring us to the war, to justify dropping bombs in Syria, and so that Canadians think, they're okay with us doing that sort of thing.
That comes back to the neocon permanent war economy class that literally has hijacked everything. And I was talking a little bit about this with James Roguski last night, where we're at in the world right now is a transition from static warfare, arms, military industrial complex, all about getting the government grants for new munitions is being transitioned to a bioweapons warfare program where the next military industrial complex will be the bioweapon military industrial complex, and that's what they're actually fighting over with this WHO pandemic treaty is literally that. Who gets the arms factories for the bioweapons warfare that they're planning to all use down the line? Because why not? If America is doing it, well, then they can do it too. So that's what they're literally fighting over. They want to build bullets as syringes, right? So
sure, war has always been profitable since the Civil War, since whenever they started making weapons for people killing each other. It's always been profitable.
Every time there's an advancement in technology, one side or the other seeks to leverage power and control and profits out of it. And until there's a balance or an equilibrium, that's kind of the pattern: wash, rinse, repeat. And as we're seeing technology and these things advance so much more quickly, there isn't even the time anymore for parity in the developments, and that's kind of, I think, a pattern that I'm seeing across the scale of different things. But either which way, we could talk about that kind of stuff for hours and hours and
Yeah.
hours. So you were looking at I guess the policing and enforcement to kind of perspective of kind of the joke that they were. That's kind of what initiated this strategic plan to expose them and mock them. That was kind of tongue in cheek the intent.
It was, I mean, we've always just sat around. It was meant to just me and my friends to entertain us as we're talking on the internet about things that bug us. And Jeremy is a very successful podcaster. He has really carved out his own path and his own product there, and he's very good at what he does. Just joking around, it was during COVID when he said from Alaska, including some of the middle states that are more conservative, same with middle America, all the way down to Florida and Texas, that all of these states and provinces have a lot more in common than the rest. And we were just going to build a super based country, tongue in cheek. Like who really believes that we could build a country? You know what I mean? So anybody that's took this seriously was just.
You were talking about that just before we went live here. I was hanging out in some of those chats back then too. Jeremy, raging dissident, as you said, a successful podcaster, with definitely a Chad mindset, and just bringing his comedic sense of humor to the shenanigans and the shit show. But I think where it really kind of struck a chord was with Omer Khadr's performance and celebration and TV time, and Jeremy was there, and I think that kind of pulled the scab off of a sore for a whole lot of people from a lot of different sides of the fence that maybe necessarily weren't aware, and kind of put you guys on a bit of the radar as far as for because the chats where it was literally like sitting around with a bunch of the boys, joking and playing, to carry the sentence forwards and let's tell the story and make it up as we go. And that was kind of where it started, by noticing the conservative stripe across the continent. And so this little podcast running dialogue, that if somebody would have, I mean, it's a comedy show at the end of it when you go back and you look at it now, Derek. Are any of those still up from the beginning anywhere?
Yeah, if you go to altcensored.com, they've logged a lot. I've even seen my first video is still on there.
Wow.
They just mirrored everybody's channel that was on YouTube that they suspected was going to get taken down, and they saved Jeremy's first podcast is there. Actually, I just watched Jeremy's first video ever. No beard, in his basement, and yeah, it's pretty funny. So you can find all of our old episodes there. I now have them mirrored to Rumble for when I lose this YouTube channel, and you have to have backups now.
Oh, 100%. Half of the places where people are watching my streams right now are backups after backups after backups. I can't count how many channels have been removed and replaced. So I built my own. So they're going there too every single day these days, just because, or you have to. So that's how it's mind-bending to me, but yet here we are, and I've been watching the development of this. I watched the Emergency Measures Act and what happened there, and Diagalon inserted into that conversation, and used as one of the reasons to clamp down the Emergency Measures Act on Canada. So this is a point where it's no longer funny anymore, right?
Yeah.
These guys literally weaponized the enforcement agencies of the country based on a podcast, a running gag, and a joke. And from that point on, initiated all kinds of atrocities against our country.
That's what's kind of weird about what's happening right now. We've been investigated by all levels of law enforcement. So we haven't done anything wrong. The guys that they tried to associate with us that watched the podcast that they arrested in Coots has been let out of jail. Nowhere near he had to plead guilty to a lesser charge, right? But it's nowhere near conspiracy to commit murder or sedition or any of these freaky things they ran all over the news. It came down to a storage issue of a weapon. And that's debatable too. I mean, he had his guns, he had his license, he has a trailer. So your trailer is your place of residence, right? So I guess the boys in Alberta probably think that it's okay. If it's your place of residence, then you can keep it restricted there as well. Now, I would argue against that. I would say probably not. I wouldn't do it. I don't have my restricted. But if you live in a trailer, that's your home. And if you're licensed to have it, technically you're allowed to do that. But
It's
I mean,
technically
the guy,
it's warfare. It's lawfare.
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
Yeah.
All of it, everything that they've engaged in order to justify their own actions as a corrupt organization. At the end of the day, there's no other way that it can be seen. But to me, I found it kind of disturbing when it, I thought that it kind of washed itself out, after they'd been so embarrassed after the inquiry. And, even, I believe CSIS really was just there to laugh and mock at them and say, yeah, no, we knew it wasn't real. It was a joke. They were told, they knew, but they did it anyway. Was that kind of the short form gist of what happened through that? So after, anyway, that I kind of thought that they'd given up on this.
Well, to a lot of Canadians, we are whatever the media says we are. They're not going to look any further into it. Just the guy in the suit on the 5 o'clock news said it, so it has to be true. People don't realize this about our news organizations in Canada. They're okay with Russia, like banning RT. We're going to ban RT because that's Russian television. That's a state broadcaster. What is CBC? It's the same thing over here. And suddenly you think a state broadcaster is benevolent for some reason. They're pushing the government's narrative.
Well, the propaganda is symbiotic to censorship. Neither work without the other. And it's been an endless onslaught. I sit here and I shake my head a lot of days. We're literally fighting mercenaries, $3 billion a year mercenaries. These are hired digital assassins that rule over the media space, engaging in basically character assassination and by insinuation and guilt, by association. No questions, no query, no judge, no jury, just an automatic sentence. And this is the thing that I found so disturbing about Trudeau's latest unhinged rant that ultimately ended up with Pierre getting tossed out of the parliament the other day. But this again come back to Trudeau desperately trying to make a connection between white national supremacy, being Diagalon, being Alex Jones, being Pierre Poilievre, that this is a national crisis that he has to be 100% obsessed and focused on. That's a dangerous set of judgments, dog whistles, I'd actually call them, for the rest of the unhinged clone troopers.
Well, they've been working towards this narrative for a while. If you remember when Chrystia Twitchy Freeland went into the United Nations and made her speech, she was talking about white nationalism being the biggest threat to Canada, and everybody's wondering what the fuck she was talking about back then. Well, she just brought it up again because I'm back watching the House of Commons just because they're mentioning our name. So she brings it up that as a mother, and they're talking about the drug crisis. This is what they're deferring to, is the drug crisis. 20 people have overdosed in BC since the beginning of the year, I think. And she's saying, well, as a mother, I have 3 children, and the biggest threat to them and what I'm scared of is white nationalism. So she goes on this rant again. And then just after that, some minister of safety in some made-up position comes out and says that they're giving the police $230 million to go after extremism, hate, and white nationalism.
Okay, I I'm going to bust out some gold here. This is the part where a whole bunch of the people out there watching heads are going to explode. Have you ever heard of an organization called TSAS?
TSAS, maybe. I see the
Maybe.
hot tamale son of Somali's face there.
Okay, now we've got. You're gonna love this, Derek. So TSAS is an acronym, of course, for Terrorism, Security, and Society, which is a nonprofit NGO headed by Mr. Ahmed Hussein. And what they are is a organization with more than 350 or 400 contributing writers that infiltrate all of the organizations within the country and report back to this TSAS organization, which then compiles them into these white paper reports like this one here. You mentioned it the other day, the manufactured hates and danger to the Islamic people. So this is generated by this nonprofit organization, which then in turn delivers all of this to Ahmed Hussein, and all of these institutions, foreign and domestic, including educational or systems, and you'll see a couple of them there that you'll recognize, I'm sure, aka the Mosaic Institute and a few others. So this is where the dirty money hits the political money, and Antifa literally gets plugged in. We did a deep dive on these guys before they locked me out of everything and put me on a few lists that have left me basically in the memory hole. But we counted no less than 14 high-level Antifa members that we had been tracking through a bunch of different events through all of these organizations. You might see some similarities and to
Crossovers,
the ones, to the events going on right now on the college campuses and the union infiltration. It's all the same guys, whether they're stopping railroads or submitting articles to organizations that write the white papers. So you mentioned Chrystia Freeland, that where she went to the United Nations and said that the single greatest threats to the New World Order was the white nationalist national and supremacy organizations in Canada. That was verbatim a report that you can find on their website that they crafted and dispersed to there. So you've literally got Antifa providing the talking points and the lines for Chrystia Freeland and all of these organizations that are crushing us.
This is hilarious. I've got a few things to say, but can you send me that diagram you made as well when you get a chance? I would like that.
Absolutely, dude.
The three names,
a part of it.
The three names that are there. First, the hot tamale son of Somali, Ahmed Hussein. He also sits on the board of what's called the Century Initiative. When he was the immigration minister, he lowered the standard for people to come in. He lowered the health and expanded our immigration system. He sits on the board of what's called the Century Initiative, and their stated goal is to get Canada's population up to 100 million by 2100. So that means you have to bring in at least 1 million people a year just to get up to par for the course. They think that Canada, just to be able to compete economically, they're going to need a lot more people here, which is ridiculous.
The problem is just the replacement, and finding enough compliance and agreement to that. When you talk about bringing more people in, one of the things that I discovered through a whistleblower was this other amazing coincidence. But since I don't buy coincidence, I had to connect a few more dots till I actually got to the story. Was that every migrant pilot project in Canada, when they announced all of their locations, were all of the places where industry had been either crushed, silenced, or gone out of business, that was being reopened for the production of 15-minute cities and new batteries and stuff. So they have spent a lot of time in destroying and taking over specific regions and areas and communities with the intent to redevelop them with new Canadian communities. So the mining company will own the mine, and they'll own the store and the shovel.
Yeah.
And the house that you live in, and all of those
I
kinds of things.
I encourage people to get involved on the politics in the municipal level, because this is where you actually have a chance to stop things. Don't bother with the federal. They have that locked down and you'll never get into it. But you can organize within your communities. And what I've been doing here is I've been going over the notes from the town hall meetings. And, well, there's some interesting things there. With the swoop of a pen, our mayor here, not my mayor, because I'm my own government here on unorganized land, the town adjacent to me, Cochrane, Peter Politis is the mayor, which nobody wants him in there. They're all wondering how he got in the first place. But what he's done with the stroke of a pen is he's erased 100 acres of agricultural land that all the farmers in the local area were using. And it's been here for 100 years. And he just wiped it out so he could bring in these $10 lots that they're supposedly selling off. And it coincides whether you're liberal or conservative. Conservative, Pierre has this plan to build more houses and incentives and all that stuff. So he's on par, or he's par for the course with the liberals as well. He's going to continue everything they've signed on to. Let's not get it twisted and think that he's going to turn things around. He's offering incentives to build more houses as well.
At the end of the day, they're all contractually, all the major parties are contractually obligated to the same attaboy list, the same to-do list. Just the only difference is Trudeau fancy socks, Lord Tampon is all flamboyant and virtue signal about it, whereas the opposition goes about being more creative and less offensive in how they achieve the same sustainable goals in the UNSDA and all of those quote unquote non-binding agreements that in order to maintain, they have to implement laws and enforcement and suppression on us, we the people. And this is where in order for them to achieve those methodologies, they needed an endless supply of bad guys and endless supply of villains. And where in Canada, in history, is there an endless supply of villains? Canada is not a villain manufacturing country. So they needed to create that. And that was hence the brainchild between ARC, Anti-Racist Canada, Kurt Phillips, and became Anti-Hate Network, where Bernie Farber and his lawyer buddy got involved and took in and became the laundromat for the federal money in order to provide and create and manufacture an endless supply of villains for the corporation to justify their heavy-handed actions. This is where it goes full circle. So these
and
guys,
that brings us back to the name that's on that list that you showed earlier, the three names. Evan Balgord is the executive director, I guess, because Bernie Farber has now stepped down. He's probably onto another project, or he's just got money from it. Evan Balgord, the first name on your list there, he's the one putting out all this propaganda about us. And we have a couple of videos about that Hategate affair that explain what Evan Balgord is doing, what Bernie Farber has done. Elizabeth Simons, who we're not even sure if she exists at this point. And the funny thing about this here, I'm not sure if you know this or not, but there's a co-author to this.
yes,
You know that Karima Saad was the main author of this. Now the the third name on that list,
Elizabeth Haitigan.
Right. Now isn't that a contradiction? She knows. She knows that we are not guilty. We are not what they are making us out to be. Yet she sits on the board of this.
This is where the whole thing, because honestly, I was onto these guys. That slideshare that I showed you there, I did that in 2021 already, Derek. I was already tracking these guys. I have Elizabeth's testimony in court where literally there is Bernie Farber on there identifying what's his name from a Daisy group as brothers from other mothers. These guys have all manufactured all of this crisis, and this has been going on for 2 decades. 2 decades of problem, reaction, solution, problem, reaction, solution, problem, reaction, solution in manufacturing these white nationalist organizations, these terrorist organizations to justify the explosion of law enforcement. We don't have cops anymore. We've got freaking stormtroopers. We've got assault squads.
Yeah.
Every law enforcement agency in the country has been fully militarized. They have capabilities that
Mhm.
are absolutely unnecessary, and they're sitting and trying to leverage, going back to this well again of this pseudo fake manufactured enemy of the state that is just John Q. Public, that they pick out and highlight and then create an agenda and a narrative around. And this is again stifling our parliament to the point where, like, this charade is so extreme that they're shutting down parliament and throwing out opposition leaders. This is just beyond comprehension. This should be international news, because this is the origin of it. Is they need an enemy, and that is we the people.
Well, it's been a common theme throughout history. I don't know how deep you want to go, but all of the people you mentioned, whether it's the Daisy Group, Rebel News, Anti-Hate, they all seem to go to similar synagogues. We don't have to get into it though.
No, that's nobody's ready for that
No.
of conversation. And the reality of it is we need to understand history, but only to at this point right now. We have to be responsible in that you give everybody the red pill right now, we blow them right up. They're absolutely useless. We need to know, how can we do triage in our society? How can we end this insanity? How can we get to a point where we can have realistic conversations without it being instantly tribal? I was listening earlier, and people were comparing people's discussions like it was the Stanley Cup playoffs. If you're not on my team, well, bust out the weapons. And I really agree with that. We're losing our ability to have a rational discussion about hard subjects, because everybody has gotten so tribal, because they're from a position of so much trauma and fear and disinformation, which unfortunately is what the manufactured establishment has piled on for decades and decades and decades. That's the misinformation. We have to undo the matrix, and they fear us more than anything. Conversations like this.
And that, you're right, we do need to have that. There are still people on the left that have their wits about them, and they see what's going on. We've been able to work with some people on the left, like Kareem Assad, for instance. There has been other people willing to have that conversation. But that's just it. Most people aren't ready for what they don't know. And they think they know some things. Like, what's a good example of this? There's a lot. People need to have that aha moment themselves. You can't
Yes,
just lead them there.
they need
They need
that
to feel
discovery.
that they figured it out themselves. So this
I,
goes a lot further back. Like, we're not even working off the real premise of history either. So everybody wants to say Justin Trudeau's a Nazi and he's this and he's that, and it's it goes back a lot further than what most people think.
it's you hit the nail on the head. And I tell people all the time, they want to know, what can they do. What the secret weapon, guys, is your ears. Your ears are your secret weapon. If you have a volume of knowledge and you're just trying to dump that on people, they are not going to get it. They're not going to understand. The only thing that happens is they dial the volume down until they can no longer
You can
do
see
that.
their eyes glaze over. Like,
Right.
their eyes glaze over and they're just not listening anymore.
It's a whole lot easier to listen for a couple of minutes and give them the nugget that from where they're at. Meet them there, give them the nugget from there, and walk away.
Yeah,
And if you then you're running away, because then they want more, and they've had that
exactly.
sense of discovery. And once they have discovered something, then they can no longer go inside of the box. But if we try and hammer that shell open, it's an exercise in futility, and you're going to want to go and throw yourself off of a bridge.
Yeah, you want to ask them the questions and what they know to decide where you want to bring it, because I've seen it happen. I have friends that know everything that I do, and I have friends that don't. And when they meet and the person doesn't know anything, the guy who does tries to hammer them with everything, I could just watch them. They're not interested now. It's just too much. It's just, your friend is crazy.
Yeah, exactly. It's information overload, and we're literally dealing with a process of an 8-second timeline. If you haven't got them in 8 seconds or less, you're done. Literally, a goldfish has more of an attention span than we do, and that's literally the example I'll use for that is people are making life-altering decisions on who their
God.
partners for life will be based on 4 seconds or less as they're swiping across an app. They'll make
Yeah.
a life-changing decision in 4 seconds or less. So if you're going longer than that, you're probably going to lose. And so load up on the little pebbles, grains of gold, and let people discover something. And I think we got to get away from this idea of thinking that we need 100% of the population. We do not. We
No.
just need 20% to figure out that the answer is to pull an Iceland.
Right. There's well, something I've learned as well is you're right with these little screens that we have. It's the instant gratification generation where they don't need to remember anything anymore. Me and you, I'll guarantee it. You remember the first phone number you ever had.
I do.
Exactly. It'll never go away. You know that fucking. I keep swearing, Wayne. Sorry, I don't want to do that on your show. That's my show. I do that on. And I've gone back to learning things from books, and there's some. I've got some bangers now, like the Canadian Establishment. I don't know if you've seen this one. It's got some good ones in there. This guy was sued by Brian Mulrooney. There's what Canada should be cherished, not canceled. The 1867 Project, Canada in Decay, Dr. Duchesne, who's going to be on my show May 19th. That's going to be an interesting conversation.
Babylon's banksters, betrayal of truth. Yeah, no, I hear you.
When you read information from these, you remember it. Just like when people used to have the Encyclopedia Britannica, every house had one. You know what I mean? And when you look something up, you never forgot it after that. But now we have these screens in front of us that we just don't retain the information because you know it's going to be there. I don't care. I can look up the recipe to chocolate chip muffins anytime I want. I don't have to remember the ingredients.
Well, you know, when you put it that way, if Justin Trudeau, if I'm not going to. If I know he has a problem with me, he knows exactly who I am. He makes sure he's got extra security on me anytime I'm anywhere near him. But if there's one person to thank for me being such a pain to him, I would have to say thank his father, because I grew up so remotely that cheap bugger wouldn't give us anything more than CBC. So I lived with a brand new set of Encyclopedia Britannica for most of my adolescent life, and that was my education system. So the only reason I'm his worst enemy is because his father gave me the opportunity to learn everything I needed to know about how messed up that family really is.
Yeah, that man really set the pretext for what Justin is doing today. And I don't know if people know the history on that or not. Get yourself and I mean your audience here, get yourself Encyclopedia Britannica pre-1967. And they'll be hard to find, but they're out there. And you'll learn a lot. Yeah, how much things have changed.
That was the greatest gift my parents ever gave me. They didn't have much, but that was something that I'm grateful for, because the ability to research was what I got, which was the biggest treasure of all. The ability to ask questions, and when no wasn't good enough, and then I became the worst nightmare for every teacher that I ever had in the education system after that too. But that's beside the point. But these are the things that I've learned is to give people the opportunity for discovery. If they don't have that, they will have no emotional commitment or investment in anything moving forward. It'll be shiny. Next shiny thing. But we're getting to a point where I think there's enough people that are out there that they don't necessarily, they realize they're not interested in the education of the history. They understand it's all sideways, it's all broken, it's all corrupt, it's all damaged. But now what? We're into this political charade that has gotten to the most extreme that it's ever been in Canada because of that. Now what's absolutely, and it's because of literally that. And I think that we're going to be seeing an earlier election, and I think it's going to go very different and very sideways, because it's going to be the most desperate time in Canada's history for not the controllers, but the controllers of the controllers, because they have no guarantee of how this is going to go.
I'm worried that Pierre is going to win. I think that's going to be a problem. I think majority of conservatives are going to stop pushing forward, and they're going to find them spending their time defending the Conservatives, even if they don't believe in all of their positions, the CBC is going to turn into an attack mode, and we're constantly going to be on our heels. Not that I consider myself a conservative, but I mean, the majority of Canadians are going to be constantly on their heels saying, no, that's not true. That's not true. What are you guys doing? Without ever actually getting to the issue. So it'll just be another distraction point away from the bigger issues that are really giving us problems.
Well, and it's I think those bigger issues that are really giving us problems is exactly why the distraction has to match in parity and noise and clamor in order to keep us from focusing on those things. And I think I'm afraid to say that I 100% agree that Pierre is going to ultimately be worse for us for a number of reasons, maybe not the same reasons, but at the end of the day, they have the same contracts to fulfill. And when he ultimately comes to power, and he absolutely will, the Liberal Party, I don't believe, can even pretend to fake enough to steal another election. They can't fake it enough to even steal it. But then Canadians go back to sleep. And we never get back to the problem. We never get back to the issue that creates all of this manifest problem in the first place. And I just published an article about this yesterday, because Canadians are going to get blindsided because simply they just don't know and understand. And yet we're being led by these corrupt syndicates that do understand, and they play the system because they understand the corruption and where it's broken and where it's gone sideways. And I'm going to use two cases in point. I had a meeting with somebody that ran for the Conservative leadership election when they were all running, the whole mess of them, and Pierre ultimately ended up winning. And I sat down, had a conversation with him, and I says, "Do you want to save Canada? Let's get our sovereignty." And he laughed and he says, "Who cares? We don't need it. We rule through implied consent."
Implied consent.
And it was like, I was, let's just say he didn't get my endorsement, and the rest of the meeting went really, really sideways.
I would hope so, yeah.
He's all but gone from the public space at this point anyways. But it really got me thinking and digging into more and more and more of that. No, it wasn't Roman Baber, sorry. But at the end of the day, it's just simple little basic things. If we are a sovereign country, how do we have a notwithstanding clause at any time that they want to pull the rug out from underneath whatever the hell we say we want to do? They can say, "Nope, you're overruled." That's not a sovereign country.
We don't even live in a democracy as much as everybody wants to think.
Because we're not a sovereign country, we have no ability to ensure democracy.
And a perfect example of this is what happened to the biggest petition in Canadian history?
Absolutely nothing, because there is absolutely no standing. And as a matter of fact, the precedent is exactly the opposite. 1992, Little Child versus the People, the court set the precedent that no elected official has any duty or responsibility to his electorate. If the people are unhappy, there is no ability for them to seek recourse, criminally or personally, except to elect another official. Well, that was 1992. And that was right after the charade of Pierre Elliott Trudeau bringing back a document that never existed in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, look at what's happening to me and my crew right now. The Prime Minister can stand up in the House of Commons and say that I'm a violent white nationalist, and I can't do anything about it.
To the country,
yeah,
as the tipping point to invoke the Emergencies Measures Act upon almost 40 million Canadians suffered because of a fallacy and a fake system in order to protect that lie. And this is where it gets sick to me, Derek, because they all know it in the federal level. Every last one of them.
Do.
They make these little innuendos. Danielle Smith recently, and she's gone to this it worked for Quebec. Quebec did it. It works for Quebec. What is she doing? She's playing exactly that gray area because they know. This is the thing that Quebec has been leveraging for decades. Why do they get equal representation in Parliament and no other province does? Huh? Why do they have two taxation systems? All of these little things, these little clues, and people think, oh, we got to protect our sovereignty.
You don't have it.
How do you protect something that doesn't exist?
Yeah. Yeah, Canadians are so mixed up. It's not even funny. It's
And
you have
well,
these people that call themselves political pundits that make money off it, and they're lying to you. They make money from lying to you.
yes.
Like, yeah,
I'm really struggling with that these days. These people, 100,000 followers, making tens of thousands of dollars off of the platforms because they're going and screaming, "Oh, let's protect our sovereignty."
that's a lot of these YouTubers and influencers only got started because of the COVID narrative, and they have no idea what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah,
They're just kind of going along and figuring it out on the way. And admittedly, that's how I started out. I didn't know what the fuck I was talking about, but I said that I was going to learn and bring everybody on a journey with me. And this is where you only end up in one place if you're being honest and truthful with yourself.
well, this is interesting. We come back to this, Derek, because most people out here probably don't know this, but you and I have known each other for years now.
I don't even know how long. It's been a long time.
2019, I can tell you.
Is it? Yeah.
I can tell you it was 2019 because I was in Ottawa to try and launch a pots and pans rally because I understood what Iceland did, and nobody else in Canada had a freaking clue what I was talking about. And that was where I started my path with sharing my journey through all of this, because I was the same way. It was and still to this day don't tell anybody what to do. I've shared my journey, what I've discovered, and I've been so blessed to through the course of that have the opportunity to speak to and share some of the most interesting, amazing, intelligent, and accurate people on the planet. So this has been just, in that sense, it's been absolutely amazing for me. I know you're selling a ton of books, but right now I'm seeing this again, where it's people like you and I that are trying to protect people from themselves with the truth. We are now the enemy of our own people now, as often as we are the enemy of the true and genuine opposition. You seeing a lot of that?
Yeah, it's easy now to tell what the truth is when you hear the government say the opposite. So long as whatever they say, you know that the opposite is going to be true, or that's the path that you should be looking down at least.
My quote for that is, "Nothing confirms the truth faster than an official denial."
Yeah. Yep, that's it. Like, they're going after white nationalism, and I saw somebody in the chat there saying they know what they need to do, but they're not allowed to say it, and that's true. They outlaw everything that you're supposed to do.
Yes.
They call you names that you never thought you would be called, and you never even gave yourself that title, and you wouldn't give yourself that title, but they know before you even know that you have to become that to defeat what they're doing.
Yeah.
So they've given you a name that you need to be scared of, and you say, well, I'm not that, I'll never be that. Well, then you're never going to defeat them. You're living off of their rules and their guidelines. It's the same thing when Trudeau said to Pierre, well, you got to denounce Diagalon. You got to say this, this, and this. He just ensured that he can never fucking say it. Sorry, Wayne, I've got to try and stop swearing. I get so...
we're mostly grown-ups here. It is what it is.
I'm trying to give up all my bad habits. I haven't smoked weed in almost a month now. I haven't had a drink in 3 weeks. I've got this left, and nobody's taking it from me yet. I'm gonna be able to smoke still.
I'm gonna interrupt with a short little funny story here. I think the first or maybe second podcast you and I ever did together was I called you an emergency backup, and you were gracious enough to join me on this podcast down in the States, in Texas. And it was
okay. I remember that.
It was supposed to be only a radio show, and it turned out being a video streamed radio show. And you were sitting there and you were rolling a smoking it on this Christian
radio show. Yeah.
So we've been through the ringer together a little bit on a lot of this stuff. So we've seen the progression of this. This is why when I was watching this charade of Pierre getting tossed out of Parliament and watching the response to that, I'm very grateful that Jeremy went out right away, and he gave the perfect response for that. A short 5-minute response. It was just, he was so tired of of having to be the adult in the room for these babbling clowns, buffoons, and idiots
Yeah.
in Parliament. And you've got Michelle Rempel running out of Parliament into her little closet with the horror video lighting, the 3-minute panic session. Oh my god! Oh
Oh,
my god!
the MP from Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's just when I see this kind of escalation on what they're doing, I had to reach out to you, Derek. It's like, what the F is it like living in these guys' brains to that extent that we're back here again where they're trying to use this pseudo manufactured fear thing, and it is literally mainstream news again. 10 minutes before the show, I think I was listening to a CTV update because they're talking about you guys in Diagalon again.
Yeah, I made sure. I don't normally do this, but I made sure I wore my Diagalon sweatshirt into town today.
I think I need to order one, and I think
Yeah.
I need to make one that says Canadian hostage. Uh,
Yeah.
it's just so you
It's
guys.
unreal to think that the people in Parliament um, don't know what's going on, but they are. I think they're all under the Dunning-Kruger effect. They don't actually know the system in which they are working in. I don't think they do. Most of them don't read the bills that are put in front of them. A lot of them, you can find them signing on to bills that go against the very thing that they decide to talk against later.
It's like Jagmeet's Singer sewing machine there yesterday coming out. Oh, well, we won on this and we won on this and we won on this. All of it was bunk and garbage and nonsense. So we're going to support the bill. Like, it's just such garbage.
He's the biggest joke in this country. That guy was run out of Brampton by his own people. Like, he cannot think that anybody takes him seriously when he's the only one holding this government in power right now, and he wants to pretend he's wagging his finger at Justin Trudeau. If that were true, he would not have a party. His party is broke. He cannot pay his salary. He can't even show up anymore without Justin Trudeau's payments. So he's propping up this government.
He's on a no-fly list on half of the planet for being a real terrorist associate. But yet, this is the guy that's holding the extortion leash over our country, and we just keep taking it and taking it in the great white northern land of cuck.
Well, there's a lot of videos when I just need to go to sleep and turn my brain off for a bit. I like watching old stories of the Devil's Brigade and like what happens to Canadians when they hear the word war. Because we're nice. We're nice, polite, friendly, but when we decide that enough's enough, things get dirty and we start committing war crimes.
I heard one English SAS author describe Canadians as either genocidal psychopaths or the casualest, coolest cat in the room, but there was no in between. It was full psycho or full park, and that's how they kind of used to look at our military, and that's kind of where Jeremy is the last of that generation. I'm afraid, from my personal opinion, our military has been absolutely neutered.
And that's something that pisses me off too. You see Justin Trudeau talking on an international stage, threatening a literal superpower when our own army has come on TV and said we couldn't mount a defense if we tried. That's a problem. He's speaking on behalf of all of us, poking the bear, the literal bear that basically borders our country if you look the other way.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. He is literally a chihuahua pissing on the leg of a Russian bear dog through the fence that is, this invisible fence called the North Pole on the other side of us. And while Trudeau was running around getting himself into positions he needed to sign NDAs over, Putin was rebuilding the Arctic defense front. And now we're in a situation where the entire collective West has thrown every single thing that they can muster at him. And he is going, do. I think it's time to go to work. And he hasn't even busted out a sweat yet. Nobody got the memo that he put his factories on permanent war manufacturing back in 2021 already. So in a day, he manufactures more munitions than the entire collective West together. So even if they wanted to, they couldn't catch up now. And the training grounds for the Ukrainian military, we covered this yesterday, where they used to be training 10 to 12 brigades a month, are training zero brigades per month. The meat grinder's empty. So it's all over but the dying as far as that goes. And here we've got this meat muppet in office that continues to double down. But at the end of the day, I think it boils down to one simple thing. It's the same as the guy at Nuremberg. When you get so deep into it, pot committed, there is no backing out, wiping it off, and saying you're sorry. These guys know that it's all over for them if they surrender their stances on any of this. So I think that it's going to be an interesting time. And over this next election, I think we're going to see the ugly head of separation rear itself out of Quebec. And that's going to prompt a whole new conversation, because too many Canadians are learning about what Iceland did. Do in Iceland. You want to know what Iceland did? Go in the wherever you're watching this from, in the show notes. There's a link to my Substack. Go find out what Iceland did. I'm not going to bore you.
I think Sri Lanka was doing something along the same lines there for a while.
Yes, they were, and they're not the only ones. But it's always easier when people can think of a country with a culture that they can relate to. If Iceland did it, we can do it too. All we need is 20% of the people to actually.
Well, there's something interesting happening in Germany right now. You're starting to see a lot of men in their 30s and 40s coming out on the streets, giving speeches saying Ausländer raus, as in foreigners out, and they're starting to use the Roman salute again. I'm not kidding. Like there's been pictures of the Italians are doing the same thing.
The entire whatever term you use for them, the cabal, the elites, whatever term that they use, I call them the controllers of the controllers. These are the guys that control the companies that the politicians need to be wearing the sponsors of. They're only concerned with one thing: maintaining the continuity of control. Through that, they call the continuity of governance. They can't let things go sideways. So this is why they control both sides, and they pass the baton on to maintain the illusion of democracy and stability. And that's disappearing on them fast. The world is turning on a dime, and the hegemony is all over. And the West, the collective West, by following this path, is in for a very, very rude awakening. And at the end of the day, I hope more Canadians figure it out really quickly that there is only one silver bullet. There is only one easy button, and that's to pull an Iceland. It really is.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And we're getting there.
Absolutely. The conversation around this election is going to be so much different than the ones in elections past. And I'm really looking forward to Quebec rearing its head of separation again, because the conversation is not going to be, oh, please stay.
I'm okay with them leaving. Go. I really am.
Please go. That's the point. It's going to force a conversation. People are going to realize that we are not sovereign, and the path to solving their problems literally comes down to the municipal and the provincial level, and going back and picking up where our ancestors dropped the freaking ball, and they've been lying to us since 1930, and go through the processes. We can fix this. The ball is in our courts. We can take all of this. And the best part of it is, if we pull an Iceland, that $3 trillion worth of debt amassed by the criminals goes with the criminals as odious debt. You know, smelly, odious debt. So
yeah, I've been called odious by a Pierre already. So
the people with the worst farts are the first one to point a finger and claim stank.
Yeah,
right?
I think the old saying goes, "Whoever smelt it, dealt it."
True story, right? Wow, this such a blast, Derek. A roller coaster ride through a whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to ask you here right now, just get me some links for some stuff. We didn't really have time to do that. I'm going to publish a Substack with all of the links that I referenced here tonight so people can go back and discover a whole lot more of their own on a bunch of the stuff that we've been talking about, and get packaged up with their book or their sweatshirt or hoodie or whatever it is that they're need to get their hands on too. So any
For
last thought
sure.
you want to leave everybody with here?
I'll mention my book again, because in there I do talk about the FLQ movement that we're seeing, kind of not necessarily the FLQ movement, but the Quebec separatism that's coming up again. They did have valid reasons to start that movement. It was the RCMP that was caught setting off a lot of the bombs. They got caught with dynamite. They got caught burning down barns at that time. And the FLQ was actually a far leftist. Okay, and they believed in ethno-nationalism as well, a French ethno-nationalism, because they were primarily against the colonial British that were trying to take over, with the corporations like GE and a bunch of other ones that were trying to I guess colonize Quebec at the time. So look to Quebec; they know a hell of a lot more than the rest of Canada.
You're 100% right on that. But there's more provinces, and this is you mentioned that same word, the right word earlier, the patterns. I've really been talking a lot about patterns over the last couple of months with different shows, and with the police is the same thing. A bunch of us got together, podcasters, with a whistleblower the other day who was talking about the police. I literally had a police officer, who'd gone through freedom of information requests to there is so much corruption going on in there, but it goes back to the system itself is the problem, and there is methodologies to address that. Just again, people, they just don't know where, why, how to do something without being putting themselves up for sacrifice. Having one of the EPS whistleblowers on my show a couple of weeks ago, it was really interesting to hear how much influence the John Q public, if organized, civilly and peacefully, and uses the correct channels, how much influencing we actually have over policing. But again, these things have been stolen from us. This knowledge, the things we needed to know to make our world go round, have been stolen from us. But a rule of thumb is the end of globalism is localism. 100%.
Exactly. That's why I'm on unorganized land. It hasn't been organized yet, and you can organize your own government.
There's so much to that at the end, but because all of this is top-down policy, manufactured, dreamt up, put together in Geneva, handed down to the meat puppet chain of command, to the meat muppets called like Trudeau and Singh, and they kick the can down to the local municipalities to do the implementation. We've had some great guests talking about that. Maggie Braun has been shutting it down in the Peterborough area through exposing the corruption and scam of the climate agenda that they're using to weaponize municipal levels. So that's the cancer spot. So many people doing such good stuff at the local level.
And that's where it needs to be done, because that's where they're implementing the United Nations Sustainable Development Agreement. So my dog is now growling at me, trying to get my attention so we can go outside. So this was a great talk, Wayne. I enjoyed this. It's been a while since we've been able to sit down and talk. So
yeah, well, I thought we'd do it on, I think the last time we did it was on your show, and it was like 3.5 hours or something. So I figured if we got you on here, we'd be able to cap it an hour, because people know that I lose my voice soon. So well, thanks so much, Derek. Keep me posted any of these other shenanigans, and enjoy living in the fantasy mind of Justin Trudeau for as long as it takes. I think he's about ready for a mental health break, or at least that's the allegations from his wife.
Yeah. Well, maybe he can get a wellness check from the RCMP when he's all said and done.
Well, send some of the soldiers that are out doing wellness checks just to go and stop by his place.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure they'll all be Canadian soldiers.
Right?
Yeah.
English. Use the English. All right. Thanks, Jared. You have a great night, and we'll chat again soon. All right, guys. That was a lot of fun. I knew it was going to be an interesting conversation. Some things that not many people have the inside perspective or the ability to understand that. But I think that there was a bit of a learning curve for both of our communities here with that today. So super excited about that. And we will keep digging. I think I'm going to do a shirt that says "Too old and too fat to run. I will fight like a feral old stock Canadian." So that's going to be my claim to fame as I'm heading out to meet St. Peter. So that's it for tonight, guys. A couple minutes over. I'm going to take another minute here to let you guys know what's coming up the next couple of days. So tomorrow night we've got Bankers, Bandits, Bullion, and Bucks with Bryce, where Bryce is a business advisor and a precious metals broker. He makes his living by deciphering between fantasy and conspiracy and theory. So always some interesting stuff every Friday. So we get together every Friday, 6 p.m. Central, and talk about some of that noise and nonsense. And then Saturday afternoon, look, guys, if you understand, when you know what you know, and you know that you are only have basically one choice when you go into any of the supply chain management stores, guys, you have one choice. You're giving your money to BlackRock, but there is another way. And anybody that has an objection to that is welcome to join us RSVP on Saturday, where I want to hear why people like giving all of their money to BlackRock instead of supporting North American organic, safe, non-toxic stuff, guys. These guys are trying to poison you, and I'll bring a whole bunch of evidence as to what they are doing to poison you through all of the products in all of the stores that you think you have choice over, but you don't. They are killing you with consumer goods, but we have got a massive community that Barack Obama considers as one of the top 10 most dangerous threats to his new world order. So we're going to talk about that on Saturday afternoon, and then Saturday evening. This one's going to be fun. We're going to do a watch party together. So bring your favorite calming beverages. You're going to need that for this one, guys, because this is going to be the equivalent of this one's going to send chills up and down your spines when you see some of the predictive processes underway in this little series that we're going to do a watch party on. So it's always a lot of fun, great community. We're going to have a watch party and get together and talk and chat about it and watch some interesting stuff. All right, guys. So that is the show for tonight. I love you all. Stay strong. Stay Canadian. You are mighty. And when Canadians decide to change the world, there is no stopping them. So stay mighty, my fellow hostages. I love y'all, and we will see you tomorrow.